Hello everybody, it's Nick here. I wanted to talk about depression today, and in particular I wanted to talk about the different ways that I have looked at depression. So I do differentiate in my mind between what I would refer to as hormonal depression as opposed to more, I suppose, mainstream depression. I'm not quite sure what other title to give it. So I have suffered from both, and the reason that I differentiate between the two is because when I went through a period, I have been through periods of depression, which I have been through more than once. There have been 3 significant periods in my life. It has been a very, very consistent feeling of hopelessness, sadness, isolation, disengagement, demotivation, tiredness, feeling overwhelmed, of no value, very low self-esteem, and a very deep and sometimes dark pondering of what's the point? What's the point of me? What's the point of it all? How does one carry on? But that feeling, when I've had it in what I would refer to as my more mainstream periods of depression, those feelings have been very, very consistent. They've actually been quite even. You know, there's a real down in the doldrums for a significant period of time. And each time I have sought support, both medical intervention and also counselling and therapeutic support. And I do think that holistic approach, the mind, body and soul has been hugely helpful. And I also know that those periods of depression have lasted actually for a few months each time, but they've also been triggered by very significant events in my life. A very deep feeling of losing my foundations and things shifting to such a seismic level that I've just been completely overwhelmed. And I do differentiate that from what I would refer to more as hormonal depression. Now, hormonal depression, I don't know if I've suffered from previously, but I've come to become quite friendly with it as part of my journey through the menopause. And what I found with hormonal depression is it's far more volatile, but it's also far more fleeting. So for me, the hormonal depression is very much when particularly my oestrogen falls way below the level that it needs to be. Now, obviously, I didn't understand this at first until I started being treated by a very, very, very wonderful menopause specialist. I'm noticing the patterns. And one of the reasons I knew that it was different was because of the lack of consistency. So the hormonal depression would come very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. You just wake up and it's there. And it would bring very, very severe feelings, very, very dark feelings, suicidal feelings, of what's the point of it all? I can't go on. I'm overwhelmed. I feel worthless. I can't stop crying. I can't face anybody. I can't talk. I just cannot engage in life in any way, shape or form. I literally just want to hide under the bedclothes. It's a very, very acute and raw feeling, attacked on all levels. And then just as quickly as it comes, it can go. Now, obviously, as I've gone through the menopause, I've got better at dealing with it. So I've got better at recognising it. And I've also got, therefore, better at going, aha, I need to do something about my estrogen. And then, it passes. But before I had that knowledge, before I'd worked that out and learnt that, because our body's always talking to us, right? And I think in the menopause, our body's really talking to us. It's talking to us constantly. And actually, I do believe, and I think I've talked about this before, that a lot of what our body starts to talk to us about in the menopause is saying, you've ignored me for years and years and years, you've ignored me, and now I'm really shouting at you. Now I'm really saying, no, you're going to have to listen to me. And I think there's something in that, which is why a lot of there is research, and I've definitely had first-hand experience of unresolved traumas and unhealed wounds that just get blown wide open in the menopause, because it's like your body is going, you know what, I'm just really pissed off, you haven't been listening to me for so long. But gosh, lost my train of thought again. But yeah, I have got much better at recognising when it's coming and being able to do something about it, which is very much one, recognising that I need to get my estrogen levels up, two, allowing myself to succumb to it, really. Not fighting a battle that I know I'm not necessarily going to win, because there is something very biologically, there's a biological trigger behind that. But it also means I need to be kind to myself, and if that means I need to go to bed for the day, then I need to go to bed for the day. But the other thing I wanted to talk about with that is it's still really, really difficult for women to talk about it. Sorry, I can't comment on behalf of the women, can I? I can only comment as a woman and why I observe that I think it's difficult for it to still be talked about. Because the thing is with hormonal depression, it's short and sharp, it's volatile, it comes and goes, it peaks and troughs. And we're all saying, reach out for help and talk to people and so forth. But it's actually quite difficult to do that. There's a real fear associated with it, certainly for me. Because if you spoke to me on one of my hormonal depression days, I might say some really quite dark things. I might say that I do feel suicidal, that I do wonder what's the point of me, that, I'm not worthy, I just don't see the point, that I'm a rubbish parent, I haven't really achieved anything in my life. It's a very, very, very deep well of I suppose some people would say self-pity. I don't think it is self-pity, because I think it is a narrative that I genuinely believe at the time. And the thing is, it can be really quite scary to admit those really dark thoughts, because it might raise some not so temporary things. So it might raise a question that says, oh, are you at risk of harming yourself? Do we need to put you on some kind of watch list? Do we need to inform people? Do we need to put you on antidepressants? Do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? And all of those things might be conversations worth having. But the reality is, if it's hormonal depression, it needs a very, very different solution to more mainstream depression. And so I think this lack of understanding of the different drivers of depression can actually create a fear, and certainly can stop me being, I'm really, really discerning with who I share information with about how I'm feeling in the moment, because I don't want the wrong conclusions to be drawn. And I think that's across the board, I think that's across the board. I think it's still very, very difficult to be able to really be honest about how we feel when we feel really desperate and we feel really down. Because actually we're really quite fearful, or no, I'm quite fearful of what ripples that might start off, what chain of events that might start off. And actually maybe, certainly with my hormonal depression, really what I just need is a safe space. I need a safe space. I need some time to be able to get my medical interventions in place, for example, such as increasing perhaps my level of estrogen. That's a really good example. I need to be able to have safe conversations with people who I know are going to be able to sit in that uncomfortable place with me and allow me to be really honest about how I'm feeling, without judging me, without trying to fix me, without trying to emotionally blackmail me. That is, and that is often given with an intent of kindness, but that's not how it feels. Oh, how can you say that? This is a classic. How can you say that? Think about your children. It's not that you don't think about your children, but there is something bigger than ourselves going on when we're in that phase of hormonal depression. And so, and I know that within maybe 24, 48, 72 hours, even less than that, it may have passed. It will go as quickly as it's come. And I also know that when I've had more mainstream depression, it has just been far less volatile, actually, far more consistent. It takes far more energy. Just, you just don't have the energy. You're just completely disengaged. You're just switched off from life, really, completely and utterly. And I definitely would say that without the support, the medical intervention of antidepressants, so the 3 big periods of depression, I have taken antidepressants, I have gone to counselling, I have made some fundamental lifestyle changes at each of those points, and all of that has been critical. But equally, when I have my periods of hormonal depression, my approach is somewhat different. And the point of doing this vlog is to say that I think it's really important not for us not to have knee-jerk reactions, because those knee-jerk reactions and that fear-induced response we may have to people, particularly in menopause with hormonal depression, can actually shut us down. It can make us quiet. It can quieten us. It can make us ashamed. It can make us afraid of judgment. It can make us afraid of being viewed or diagnosed as something that may well have gone, may well have passed. I mean, I know when I've had hormonal depression before, I have taken antidepressants, they've had absolutely no impact, absolutely none at all. Whereas changing the levels of my HRT has had a massive impact. So yes, the point of this vlog is to say that if we really want to say it's okay not to be okay, and to really encourage people to be able to speak out, and it does help enormously. It really does help enormously, being in a safe space with a safe person who you can really talk to without fear of judgment or reprisals, or things being put in place that perhaps actually aren't needed. It really helps. But sadly, I think it's still a rarity. I think other women who go through this get it. I do, but I think I think it's still a rarity. And one of the things that's led me to do this vlog today is that I had a really 2 days ago. I had a really bad episode. Actually, I felt really very down. I felt awful. I felt very what is the point of me day. And it's much easier to talk about it now because it's past, and this was a mere 48 hours ago. I actually wrote a poem. For those of you know, I really like to write. Whether I'm any good or not is a different matter, but you know what, who cares? I get joy from it. So I think that's the thing that does matter. If I spent my whole life looking for external validation, I'd never do any of this, right? So and I wrote the poem, and I realised I haven't published it. It's in a draft on my website, and the question is, why haven't you published it, Nick? And because it's very raw and it's very honest, and it does talk about some of the darker, more suicidal thoughts that you have in the depth of that depression. And I daren't publish it in case why daren't I publish it? I think I'm really afraid of judgment. I think I'm really afraid of judgment. And this is coming from me, who talks very openly, or as openly as I am able to. And that is what has led me to say there is still a lot of fear surrounding us being able to be honest about how we feel, for lots of reasons, which I've outlined before. And I think first and foremost, we have to be able to find safe places to talk to people without knee-jerk reactions, without misdiagnosing this desperate need to fix. Because actually ironically, part of the fixing is just allowing us to have that space to be able to talk without us fearing the reprisals from them. I just wanted to share that today. It felt important. Okay, lots of love. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Bye.